Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this evening. It is me, Bond, and I am here with my good friend Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Doing really good.
This is the Ghost Furnace. We have a kind of a classic conversation for you guys this evening. With all the stuff we've been doing recently, we haven't touched what was originally kind of our bread and butter, which was just kind of classic ghost stories. You know, just spooky things happening in a place somewhere, and us kind of talking about it and relaying the stories to you guys, and just kind of analyzing the whole situation as we try and do. So very excited to be with you here this evening, and I'm really excited to hear some of the stories Nick is going to share with us tonight. So thank you so much, Nick. And what do you got for us?
Yeah, as you said, it's been kind of a while since we've done the typical haunted place, haunted house story, and this is just a perfect evening for it. While we record, it is the very end of April, and here in Western Pennsylvania, that means it is 40 degrees and raining. So I've got a good cup of tea I just made. I've got a sweater. I'm not wearing it, but it's here on my chair, and I might break it out before the end of the evening.
See how it goes.
Yeah, I'm just playing it by ear today. And that's kind of what the theme is going to be for me this evening as well, because just the other day, a house came to my attention. It's not too far away. It's a crossover. You cross over the West Virginia line and then cross over another line into Ohio. There is the town of Bellaire, Ohio. Now, a lot of people recently may be familiar with the Bellaire house, and that is no surprise what I'm here to talk about today. But it's kind of one of those things that I don't even know where to begin. I feel like we have been always pretty thorough, consistent with whenever there's places that have just way too much going on, we've always expressed a good deal of skepticism, whether it be the Amityville house or there's been some other places. Do you recall specifically anywhere we were just both like, there's just way too much happening here for it to be believable?
Well, I think we see that a lot in older stories. Like, I mean, I think of like the Bell Witch. That's one that comes to my head. It ticks all those boxes. Even that one that we read a few months ago about that haunting in Wisconsin, where it was just like one thing after the other, ticks all the boxes, which in some ways can be really interesting, but in some ways can be a bit of a red flag. However, we have also mentioned on the other side of that spectrum places like Gettysburg, Moundsville, places that have all those same hallmarks, but are almost definitely haunted too. So everything falls on a spectrum, I feel.
And speaking of Moundsville, let me just confirm this real quick. Okay, never mind.
Bellaire is further north.
This is only it is. This is only about an hour from Moundsville. That has absolutely nothing to do with anything because they're just both in Ohio, and they're both really not that far away from us. I think for us to get to Bellaire, it would be like an hour, 20 minutes. So maybe an hour and a half, depending on things. It's irrelevant to the subject, to what's going on. Basically, the short story is this. Bellaire, like everywhere else around this region, is a mining town. It began life as a mining town. It has this mining family that were instrumental in the town. And one of the members of that family built this house in the late 1800s. At least that's kind of the story that I hear looking into this. The story goes on that there was a tragedy within the family. There was a distraught person in that family living in that house, and they went and they had seances. And of course, this means portals are open, and the house sat vacant for a while. And the neighborhood people said, well, that's the haunted house. That's kind of the very brief backstory. Well, later on, just within the last 20 years, a family bought the house and they were having paranormal issues. And it's a very classic story. They were hit upon hard times. Again, this is not anything new. There's a lot of places that have covered this and have told this story. Basically, the family had lost a lot in a flash flood. They were looking to relocate. They find a place that was a bargain, is what they say. We've heard this story so many times. A haunting in Connecticut's almost the same exact story. The Amityville, almost the same exact story. So just because it's a common story isn't me being dismissive of it for that. I'm dismissive of it for some other reasons. I do give it credit for something, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Like I said, I'm just kind of going by the seat of my pants over here. The bottom line is the family moves in. They're facing hard times, and they're making a go of it. They're having these paranormal experiences, and they get crazy. They see people. They see a man in the house. Their dog gets thrown against a wall. They're pinned down. The woman that owns it claims to have been pinned in bed or wake up in a bed in a back room and not know how she got there, or spend weeks in this bedroom. And there's so much that it's claiming to be the most haunted house in the world. Tall claim. There's a few things I'm just going to read, because they have a public site, and I'm just going to read a few snippets of what they say and kind of highlight a few things. But on their history section, it says, there's nothing quite like living in a haunted house. I, for one, have had that experience of living in what's referred to as the most haunted house in the world. One paranormal activity after another, the Bellaire house has earned itself a reputation for being just that over the years. Okay, well, just who's saying all this? But the paranormal hype of the Bellaire house is not new. It stretches back to the early 20th century. There were certain events, or should I say incidents, that led to the haunting of the Bell house. It's actually strange, because when you see the Bellaire house, the first impression you get is that it's an innocent-looking house, except that it sits atop a so-called cursed coal mine. So I want to say something. a lot of the stuff I've seen online talks about, well, the house is built over a coal mine. If you know anything about this region, like, that is wholly unexceptional.
Right.
And there's more than just one typical, like, there's more than just one mine. I think the image that most people get when they think of a mine is they think of that tunnel with the wood bracing everything up. Classic mine.
Yeah.
But as you were fully aware, there's the Moraine State Park down the road from us. Man-made lake there. Do you recall how many mines they had to seal?
Oh, once upon
and this
a time,
isn't a massive lake.
It was dozens, wasn't it?
Higher. Hundreds.
Really, it was hundreds.
Hundreds.
For some reason, I was thinking like it was close to like 40 or 50 or something like that. So, but that doesn't shock me at all. What you think about when you think of like a mine, especially like out west, is like what I think of.
Right.
Like that's not how these. Like where we went to high school at was built over mines, right? You know, like
everywhere in this region is built over mines, and and we, again, Western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, we're not even the anthracite region. Now, if you go to Eastern Pennsylvania, that's where the real good stuff is, the anthracite. Well, a perfect example, like, again, just to really highlight how unexceptional it is around here for there to be mines on your property or even under your house. You may recall from the early 2000s when we were living together in Slippery Rock, there was the Q Creek mine disaster.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Famous. Yeah.
Have you been to the memorial where it happened?
No, I've driven near it, and I really would like to go, because apparently it is it's a wild place.
It is wild. I've been there. I was coming back from somewhere. I was in Somerset. I was coming back from work. One of the wildest things is that the opening where they rescued those men from, the miners from,
right,
it's right in somebody's front yard.
Yeah, which like,
I mean, literally in front of and if it weren't for the monument, you would never know that there was a mine there.
Right.
So, yeah.
So yeah, just little brief non sequitur.
Brief non sequitur, but this is the mine is one of the reasons. Mine. The cursed mine. Yeah. They say that there's ley lines. Basically, so they say there are 5 reasons that this house is so haunted. It sits directly on a ley line, is what they say. Yeah. I need to ask you, how does one identify ley lines?
So ley lines.
I figure you will know this.
No, see, it's funny. Ley lines are something that's always interested me, and every time I start to look into it, I get discouraged because it seems like there's like 2 layers of like really cool documentation and then like nothing to like back it up, at least for what I've found. So we really should do a ley line deep dive, because being in Western Pennsylvania, people talk about apparently there being lots of ley lines around here because of the confluence of the rivers, and things like that. So if someone out there has a good resource on ley line history, originations, things along those lines, let us know. I would love to read that book.
Okay. Well, I wasn't aware that they were apparently so common around here. So the site says there are 5 things that give the Bell House its haunted reputation, but then it goes on to list 9 things. So we've got a 5-to-9 ratio. Ley lines are 1. The Ohio River's constant flow of water, which creates energy. Most rivers are constantly flowing. Okay. The French and Indian War, Native American rituals. Okay, I think that's blaming the victim there. Yeah. Abolitionists and Underground Railroad. Okay. There was a coal mine fire under the street. Again, unremarkable. I'll get back to this in a minute. Constellations are above the house. Now, where do constellations occur, Brendan?
They tend to occur above.
Right, because they're in the sky and up in space and all that.
That's a weird thing to list. Okay, yeah.
Well, go ahead. And I'll come to that too, because the location of the Bellaire house, this is a direct quote, is very special, because if we look up at the night sky, we can clearly see a planetary alignment of Mars, Saturn, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter, along with other constellations. This is a perfect planetary alignment to manifest any human desire, but also a way to tap into galactic portal celestial beings.
So who wrote this?
This is the owner of the house. Now, okay, I'm trying not to be very negative. I'm not trying to be negative, because I have to give a big credit. I'll do that in a little bit. But okay.
I'm curious about the activity as well, because like, again, the activity and people's interpretation of it can often be very different. So please
now
continue.
I'm only through 6 of the 5 things, and I still got 3 more to go. But just to get recap, the reasons why it's so haunted or has this haunted reputation: number 1 of 5, the ley lines; number 2 of 5, the Ohio River's constant flowing; number 3, the French and Indian War / Native American rituals; number 4, the abolitionists and Underground Railroad; number 5, the coal mine fire under Belmont Street; number 6 of 5, the constellations above the house; number 7 of 5 has to do with 17 portals. This has to do with number 8, residual energy; and number 9, death inside the house. Now, I want to mark a few of these that are very common. 1, rivers. Okay, now, one of the things that you talk about a lot is waterways being a source in liminal spaces and all of this.
Right.
I've always been a little unimpressed by that, only because show me a human settlement of any size that isn't going to have water nearby.
Las Vegas.
Yes, I accept that.
It's Las Vegas and wherever else that wasn't. There's some abandoned city near one of like the
I think you're talking about the Salton Sea in California.
Salton Sea. That's
okay. But the Salton Sea. Remember this.
Yeah.
there was an artificial lake that was created.
Oh, was it artificial originally?
It was an artificial lake that was created. Okay. I'm almost certain of that. The town blew up around it.
Right.
But I forget what exactly occurred, but it caused the salt levels to rise catastrophically. It killed everything in the lake, and the town died. Right. Las Vegas has a lot of water features, but you are right. But Las Vegas is also a creation of the 20th century technology.
Right. Yeah. No, I was being kind of facetious. So,
that was a good one. That was good. So again,
generally speaking, you're correct.
Yeah. We've got 9. I'm saying having a river is not 1. Yeah. So now we're down to 8 of 5. The French and Indian War, again, I don't know of a specific battle that occurred right there. Mm-hmm. That was the 7 Years' War, as it's known in Europe, was a pretty big world. Some say it was the first world war. So quote unquote, again, not a really exceptional thing. Doesn't mean it couldn't affect an area, but
right.
The same is true with abolitionists and Underground Railroad. Right. The same is true with constellations above a house.
To me, that's the least. I mean, that and the portals is pretty like.
The portals we'll get to, but also a death inside the house. So now they got 4 that I'm going. Okay, but one of them is ley lines, which you tell me here in this region there's so many supposedly.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
So it seems most of these on this list seem something of banalities because again, the house was built in the late 1800s. Most homes are going to, especially in that era, if somebody didn't die in them or on the property, it was quite likely that this is the era where funeral parlors are just starting to really become more. This is wholly unremarkable.
Yeah, I think I assume what they're trying to do is be like, hey, here are all of the, if you're playing haunted house bingo, here's all the dots you can mark for this house.
I accept that.
Yeah,
I accept that.
So
the on the water subject though, this is another direct quote. Physics proves that water is a portal. I'm just pausing there for dramatic effect. Again, direct quote. Physics proves that water is a portal because it is always moving, and the magnetic pool of water creates a powerhouse of energy where spirits can cut through earthbound gravity, gain energy, and port back and forth from their dimension to ours. The craziest part is that the portal sits right under the house. Now, I have questions. 1, the magnetic pool of water. Is that a thing? Spirits can cut through earthbound gravity? Listen, I have a big credit that I'm going to give them later, but this is all the things that make me go, what?
Because that's the thing is, if the house is that haunted, and again, I have no reason, I have some questions about the person writing this description, but I have no reason to, worry about the credibility of what other people have said has happened there or anything like that. But if it's that haunted, why do you need to try and justify everything? It just, I don't know. It did that. Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Okay. One of the, let me go back to the list here. The coal mine fire under Belmont Street. So on the history here, it says that in 1893, there was a disaster. 42 miners were killed under the house. I couldn't, of course, you give me a date and an event, I'm going to look it up now. I did find a bunch of mine disasters in the immediate area, including 2 in Bellaire, Ohio itself.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. None of them were in 1893. 2 that occurred in the town itself occurred in the 1940s. In fact, March 16th, 1940, the Hanna Coal Company Willow Grove number 10 mine explosion killed 72 people. One of the biggest mine disasters
That's awful. Jeez.
in Ohio. Yeah, it is awful. There's a the Harrison County History of Coal Museum is a wonderful website, and it has all of these different mining disasters. Now, it is entirely possible that they missed one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
sure.
or the dates are messed up. When did the activity apparently start in the house? Was it before the
Well,
40s or
according to there was let me pull back up the history here. Basically, again, the house was built in the late 1800s.
right?
The family was involved. I can't prove that. The family, this famous family, I can't prove that they were owners of it. It's a nice house. It's not an overwhelmingly remarkable house, but it's not like a super modest home either.
Right. But so as far as like the activity in the house goes.
I'm sorry. They claim the house was built in 1847, but I don't believe that, only because I can look at the house and I can say this looks more like 1890s, 1880s at the earliest. Right. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I'm trying to find.
No, but I was just saying. So, like, what other activity? Because I mean, they mentioned a few things of the activity in the house. What else is supposed to happen in this place?
Oh, everything happens. They get a lot of voices. They get a lot. Basically, the activity, they claim that there were in the early 1900s, there were seances which occurred in the house, which again, as we've talked about a lot, wholly unremarkable.
Giving these folks the benefit of the doubt. I think what they're trying to convey is that, like, again, this kind of checks all of the boxes. There were events, there were both negative events that could stir up things. There were intentionally spiritual events that, you know, if not properly conducted, could stir up things. So it sounds like they're trying to build a series of premises for the activity to sit on later. So, like, who are the people experiencing things here?
Okay, so as I said, the family who had bought the house, again, the documentary that I saw, and I watched a few different things and I read a bunch of different things, because this house has now been featured on a lot of different things and whatnot. Again, this is not going to be new to a lot of people. I'm just kind of trying to like piece it all together and give my impressions, and I'm just being a little bit more skeptical, I think, maybe than the average bear. This is another one of those things like people from outside the region might not understand. I saw a quote saying they bought the house for like $45,000 or something. Again, if you're not in Western Pennsylvania, Southeastern Ohio, West Virginia, that's common.
And yeah, like, and what year was this?
This was like 2008, I believe, 2009.
Oh yeah, that's not. I mean, depending on the town.
Like,
yeah,
I can still get a house in this town for $30,000. The house is comparable to my old house. Okay, so sorry. Again, this is just a preponderance of banalities to me, but I think that aspect of it is stated a lot on a lot of people that come from outside the region, just because, again, these are some of this is not a very wealthy, there are wealthy pockets, but this is generally not a very, wealthy area as far as real estate goes.
Right. Yeah.
But that does fit that pocket where everybody's saying, oh, the house is way cheaper than it should have been given everything. Right.
Yeah. So again, you're trying to not so much be overly skeptical, but trying to give context to some of the claims of exceptionalism to this location. Okay. Yeah. I got you.
Thank you for succinctly putting down what I was trying to say. But the family had a bunch of experiences, and finally they had to move out, but they were not able to sell it. So they were renting it out, but the renters wouldn't stay for very long. The claims that were before they were there are a bunch of people in and out of the house as well, and they also didn't stay very long. So here's the big credit I give them. They say, we've got this haunted house. We can't unload it on somebody. and we're having a hard time renting out. So what can we do? So from at least 2017 onward, they have been renting it to investigations, to paranormal investigations,
Really?
to teams that can come in and rent. I guess they do some tours as well by appointment. And so I give
That's very
credit to that.
entrepreneurial. Yeah.
Well,
Very entrepreneurial.
there's that
and
aspect.
Like that's an interesting way to I don't think there's many other places that do that. I feel
there's a few that I can think of,
sure,
and we'll probably
there's a
talk
few
about
out
them
there.
down the road, because I dig this. Like, I'm fascinated by the story. However, just like we talked about the Harmony Inn, which is really early on into our doing this, and the story that's always been told is that the guy was a railroad magnate that built the house. Well, one, I was able to definitively show that not only did he not build the house because the house was built when this child was 8 years old, but he was not a railroad tycoon. He was dabbling in the railroad business, and it appears by court records that I walked over to our local courthouse to determine he may have been embezzling money from his family's bank in order to fund his railroad ventures, which lasted less than 2 years. So, okay. The bottom line is I'm just seeing some historical
parallels.
Things that, I give a lot of credit, but the other aspect is because this is now an entrepreneurial endeavor, the best thing you can do to advertise a haunted place is just ratchet up everything. And this is just another one of those things I'm skeptical, because I have always been on record saying a residual thing. The stone tape, which you turned me on to, that idea more than any others resonates with me, that there is just something that's on replay, an event, a moment in time is replaying. To me, it's hard to say what's likely, but that seems to be more likely to me than a sentient thing. And there's sentience, there's demonic activity, there's full body apparitions, there's the physical ability to haul or heave dogs across rooms, to push groundskeepers into windows.
So if you have investigators coming in, like we've said before, there's all the priming that happens, and there's all these stories that build everything up. So regardless of where the activity is coming from, does it seem like, from what you found, that investigators are, with some regularity, having success capturing activity at this location?
It seems to me that it's extremely dependent on who they are and what they're going in for, because I've seen at least one where it was just kind of a laugh. They were from a news organization, and they had gone in, and it was just, they didn't really have any experiences other than this is something you said when we were having a conversation with Brian not that long ago. They put a bunch of creepy stuff in the house. You're in a place you don't know, in an old house with a bunch of spooky stuff, and there's no lights on, and you're being told how haunted it is. Right. In the face of that, nothing seemed to have happened to them. So,
well, I think it's interesting because, like, when it comes to having investigators come in there, like, you have people that probably have different intentions and different methods and different levels of experience.
But also people that are looking to confirm something that they want to believe.
Or debunk. What this reminds me of is there is another podcast out there, which I have no problem plugging, called Astonishing Legends. And first off, they do really good research, really, I think, genuine guys, the two hosts, Scott and Forrest. They investigated, this was maybe back in 2016, 2017. They investigated a place that sounds very similar to this. It's called the Sally House in, I believe, Kansas or Missouri, somewhere like that, somewhere in the middle of the country. And they did like a multi-episode like investigation where they went to this place. It sounds very similar in the sense that, like, they have investigators come in on a regular basis. And in this location, it sounds just like with the Bellaire house. people were consistently getting EVPs and seeing apparitions, and almost like through everyone's continual investigation, you start to see patterns emerging, which some people tie to like legitimacy of the haunting. One of the most interesting thing about their investigation is the one of the two hosts, Scott, I believe it was Scott. I apologize to anyone who knows otherwise, but I think it was Scott. Previously, in however many years this podcast had been going on, he was always very skeptically minded. I would say he was maybe like a hopeful believer at best, kind of thing. During this investigation, they captured an EVP that completely shattered his reality, to put it lightly. And I would say it is the only EVP that I have heard that, like, because I've heard some EVPs that were very creepy and kind of give you the chills, give you the willies. It's like, oh, that's a weird one.
Oh, for sure.
This is one of those EVPs that if it is not straight interference or not faked, like if it's not one of those two obvious things, it is the scariest thing I've heard too. It is.
Oh, I need to hear this now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll look, I'll look it up after we're done here today and see if I can find it for you. It's it's terrifying. And that's an example of someone who was in a place that was primed, had a story, kind of fits a similar mold to what you're talking. So what I'm saying is there is precedent for houses like this, I guess, that get, either whether people are paying for it or not, I guess it's kind of different, but getting investigated over and over again by multiple teams, which with how some people talk about it, maybe that brings things in, maybe it just brings out what's already there. Like when you were talking about the stuff that has happened in this house kind of being all over the place, some of it seems very aggressive. Even when you mentioned the one issue that sounded like sleep paralysis, it was like really serious sleep paralysis or people being pushed or things like that. That's pretty intense. Like you don't see that with the majority of hauntings,
It's true. And you do say aggressive. And I was reminded that the owner had said that the house does not like people. Fair enough.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I think in that, like, to me, that again, it's such a strange way of going about the issue to me, because you're presuming to know a lot of things. That's one of our natural tendencies, right? Is to create narrative whenever we see a series of events. How are these things influencing each other? How are
I think it's all part of
connected?
That pattern-seeking behavior. I completely agree with you.
Right. I think that probably has a lot to do with it, but I'd be curious to see what some of the people who are investigating this place come across, because, a legit EVP is a legit EVP. Like if you have multiple people witnessing the same full body apparition, that's still pretty remarkable, kind of thing, even if there are some other red flags in a place. For this house, do teams regularly, you said this seems like they have success there, because obviously they're still going strong, it sounds like. Is there any narrative starting to develop, do you think, to this location?
I mean, the closest thing to a narrative that they have, what I can see, is that there's this family drama. Somebody dies, somebody's sad, they try to connect with them through seance. Supposedly this opens portals in a place that's already predisposed to portals. Then somebody goes insane. That's the closest thing to a linear story that like exists. Timeline.
Right. Like this happens and this happens and this happens.
Now, I do want to say something very quick to something you said, and you're right. It's that just because what I'm reading is really hyping this place up, and it's just way too much for me to put much into it, doesn't mean that some of these things aren't true. But I do believe that this is, again, it's an advertising thing, because they are advertising a service or a product of sorts.
Right.
And so advertisement is built entirely upon hyperbole and superlative. There's a lot more of those than substantive things.
Right.
So you're right. I'm sorry. You have more thought that you're getting to.
I think one of the things that fascinates me about like a story like this, with all the different kind of things happening, is I immediately try and put myself in the shoes of like those people, and try and think like, what would led someone to come to the conclusion that like, oh, we can't live here. Because like, again, we have friends that have houses that have activity in them, and things like that. And thankfully, for the most part, it seems pretty, across the board, like not harmful. But like, imagine being in a situation where you saw like your dog get thrown across the room, or you got like pushed, like we've all had like little like spasms or something where we tripped or moved weird and we're like, oh, that was weird, like body just had a little glitch, but imagine something where you couldn't account for it, and you're like, oh, something just pushed me. Because like, if you're already in a place where you're, spending, that kind of money on a house and everything, getting up and leaving probably isn't the easiest, quickest option, like that, like people don't do that for no reason.
I don't know if that's really what happened, that they picked up and left, because it seems to me timeline wise that they were there for a number of years.
Oh, okay. I misinterpreted that.
No. It's okay, because that's definitely what the story seems to suggest.
Mm-hmm.
But the timeline, that looking through everything that I've been able to piece together, that doesn't necessarily seem to reflect the timeline. Because as far as I can tell, people have only been able to visit this house since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So I could be wrong. The owner, who is the woman that experienced the dog getting thrown into things and whatnot, in the earlier things I saw, it said that she had, I'm trying to remember, she was a psychologist or something, or she had some education and degrees in that world.
Mm-hmm.
I can't quote the exact thing off the top of my head, but when I look at her on the site now, not only is the owner, it says, but she is also a profound psychic medium.
Mm-hmm.
As a metaphysician, it says, an accomplished paranormal investigator, aligning herself with the most respected influencers in the industry. She dedicates her life to afterlife studies and data collection, principally with her property. Her research skill is applied, quote, organically and scholastically, while infusing a metaphysical component, lifting it to a holistically professional level. So it's
that could be really interesting if someone, and maybe places are already doing this. Maybe this is a thing that does exist somewhere. But if someone said like, hey, we have this like, group, guild, kind of like what we've talked about with the Philip experiment, where someone's like, hey, we have a house that we think has a lot of activity, and people who are already into that stuff have a propensity to maybe bring it out of places when they're there. So that's not terribly surprising that she was into that stuff, and then surprise, your house is haunted. And then said like, hey, like, let's take the next 5 years, 10 years or whatever, and do like some really consistent experiments, and things like that, and try and capture as much information as we can, and start to build like an actual data set that can be used as a control versus other things. Like if they said, oh, we have I'm sure someone who's an actual scientist could explain this better, but you said like, oh, yeah, like I'm sure they could, explain why we're wrong. But like, if you said, oh yeah, okay, we have a house that's apparently haunted, that we have video running 24/7, kind of thing. And we have, people scrubbing that data on a regular basis. We have motion sensors, all this stuff. And then compare that to what happens when investigative crews or mediums or people like this come in, because then you have a baseline to go off of.
I agree with that.
That would be interesting. I'd love it if someone was doing that.
No, I agree with that. I do think, I read part of her bio that she offers. it sounds, well, some of the earlier things I had seen, she kept being quoted as saying, I did not believe in this stuff. When I encountered these things, I always look to its psychology, its emotion, its, stress, all these things.
Right. Trying to be pragmatic about it. Yeah.
Right. Which I respect. But
yeah.
Now, this goes in line with the example we had of the EVP with the guy on the podcast who came in skeptically. Personal experience, a testimonial like that can definitely change your life, because the bio of the woman on the website today,
right, very different.
She reads like a true believer.
Right.
So was she really so skeptical before, or was she really, and then the personal experience, because personal experience goes a long way, and personal experience can make you believe things that aren't true, but just because you've found your way to explain them, and it's now hard to get out of that.
Right.
I do want to read some of the rules on if you want to book a stay. Okay.
That could be interesting. Yeah, let's hear that. Yeah.
The use of alcohol or drugs before or during the investigation will get you ejected without a refund, which seems totally
fair,
understandable. Okay. Weeknights, overnight. Looks like all weeknight investigations are $500 a night, up to 8 people, and $50 per person over 8 people. All access private weekend is just $995, up to 8 people. There are no refunds if you have to cancel your team's date. You may ask to move. You are not allowed to use Ouija boards, urns, mirrors, or minor rites or rituals of any kind. No haunted objects to trigger the activity. No calling in demonic energy from a left path ritual. Not sure what a left path ritual or a minor rite is. Absolutely no rituals of any kind. No opening or closing of portals. No exceptions. I would like to see if someone's accusing me of closing a portal, they need to demonstrate the evidence of that, frankly. Okay. You are permitted to live stream, but be respectful, sure. No bad words or inappropriate behaviors. Yeah, so there you go. The house is fully functional with heat, air, water, bathroom, showers. Bring your own towels, please. Smokers smoke outside. Let's see if there's anything else. Media and filming and social media influencers get a flat rate of $1,000 per day with a $500 non-refundable fee. She is no longer doing complimentary film interviews. Please understand that if you ask her to be in your film or YouTube channel, there is a fee of $350 for her unique communication sessions and her interview. Now, I think that's reasonable. It seems like she's getting some traffic.
I don't have any problem with any of that. Everyone is allowed to set their prices and do what. I got no qualms with that.
So I don't know how frequently it's rented out, but I do know that it does get rented out because there are no shortage of videos of people there.
I'd love to talk
am I
to
critical
one
of the prices? No, I'm not critical of the prices if they're getting people in. Some of the things like the no opening or closing of portals, one, you're presenting this as a problem that all these portals are here. How are you going to prove that I closed the portal? I feel like that could be. You ever have like a slum landlord? I have.
Right.
Actually, we have. Yes, we have. Okay. That just seems like the perfect way to like make sure you keep your money. Did you whoa. This portal was open when I rented this property to you. Have you did you close this portal? Did you close it? No, you probably one of your idiot friends came over here and closed this portal. They didn't know what they were dealing with.
Parties.
No, I'm sorry. I'm keeping the deposit. I'm keeping the safety deposit. I cannot. You want to challenge it? You got to bring it to court. Bring it to court.
Oh my God, that's oh God, yeah. I don't know about that one.
I don't know about many of it.
I mean, it's. It takes all types, man. It takes all types. But I would at the same time, though, I would really love to speak with a paranormal team that has done like an investigation or two there to see what their thoughts on the house are.
100%.
Because again, if this place is getting, people are going there over and over again and spending their hard-earned money, and like no one's on a paranormal investigation team because of the money, so like
that is a rarefied breed that are making money on that.
Yeah, so like if folks are consistently going there and getting activity to the point where they feel like it's justified spending that kind of money, like that's kind of impressive. I would be curious to talk to some of those folks, see what kind of experiences they have in the house. Because like I know for myself, like even if you're going somewhere where you feel like this place is not haunted, there's it's none of that is existing. Hearing all those stories and then being in that place at night when it's real quiet kind of thing, like I don't know, like I'm not an investigator, and nor am I a brave man or have ever claimed to be.
Yeah,
I'd be curious to see what those experiences have been.
I think a lot of people would look at that and be like, these prices are outrageous. And I'm saying no. I don't believe that, because if she's getting people in, cool. I give a lot of credit to that, because she is saying, you can do this. I totally understand that if every 2-bit YouTube person or idiot like myself is trying to interview her, that you're going to charge for your time, because I'm sure she has other things going on. And if you think about it, you get a weeknight for $500 for up to 8 people. That's less than $63 a person.
Right.
You'd be hard pressed to get a room at a Super 8 for less than $62, $63.
Right.
And if you do the $1,000 weekend thing, again, up to 8 people, you're looking at less than $100
from an entertainment standpoint. That's actually pretty decent. Yeah, I mean, we have spent more on less, so
sure have.
I mean, definitely not given the proprietors a hard time for any of that kind of stuff.
I will say I'm not going to let the opening or closing of portals thing go. Like, okay, maybe if you see someone deliberately doing something that they believe is going to open a so-called portal, I can understand why you'd be like, stop that. Because if you believe
that's
it,
kind of
you believe. I get that.
That's how
but the closing.
The only thing I can think of is that maybe, and again, I'm completely speaking out of turn here, but like maybe in whatever belief system that is rooted in, maybe the portal itself is not good or bad. Maybe it's a natural thing. Maybe it's like, don't fill in the hole, like the hole's just there.
The house is on fire. The house is on fire. I understand that you don't want me to set another fire, but you also don't want me to put the fire out.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, I agree that it's kind of like a mixed message in that sense. So like,
no, and also I can understand no rituals of any kind. I understand that too. I don't know why you had to list it. Not only does it say no rituals of any kind, but also no minor rites.
Maybe that's like a ceremonial magic thing or something.
Well, I don't know.
Which is
if
fine.
You believe, you don't want people having rituals there. I get that too.
Cool. Yeah.
What I don't understand is the urns. What if it's just a vase?
Yeah, are urns like a big thing? Like, I
don't know.
For people that do investigations.
No haunted objects. Isn't the whole place haunted?
The house.
I mean, if I'm to be believed, this entire town is cursed.
Yeah. Jeez.
So it's just. Silly,
there's a few mixed messages, but at the same time, maybe we can chalk those up to just like not being part of that world belief system or whatever, and not maybe there's some context clues there that we're not picking up on. I don't know, but
I agree with that. But there it is. That's just kind of I've been looking at. I picked up on it earlier in the week. I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, it's less than an hour and a half away. I'm going to look more into this." And it is intriguing, but from the onset, it's like this is over the top,
right?
And the hyperbole, even in like, how many people are really saying this is the most haunted house in the world?
That's kind of one of my questions. Now, that being said, staying in a haunted place, that is something a lot of people have done, and I would do, and think is like a very normal thing. This is like one. I'm looking at staying at the I almost pronounced it the wrong way, but the Jean Bonnet Tavern out in Bedford. I really want to stay there, supposedly haunted.
I really want to go have lunch with you there sometime.
Oh, dude,
we should go fishing.
The food there is so good. It's so good.
But, not to jump in real quick, but you said staying in what you feel is a haunted place is not abnormal. And I'm not trying to go into a topic you don't want to discuss, but I know you've talked about having relatives' houses where you've seen like shadows and whatnot. Right, you felt that they were haunted, and so that's normal for you.
Yeah, and even we one of our early episodes, we talked to our friend Sarah who stayed in a place in Gettysburg. Which house was it? The Jenny Wade house, which is famously haunted. And her and her husband spent the night there. And caught a really, in my opinion, a really wild EVP, and so again, I think that what we're talking about here with the Bellaire house is kind of a few degrees further than what we see as what we would say as a typical situation in a haunted place.
And you can make your own mind up about it. It's clearly possible that something's going on, but it is certainly wrapped up in a lot of colorful packaging. And that's really where I'm coming at with it. If you got an opinion on it, if you've been there, seen it, done that, and you want to tell us about it, heck, we want you to tell us about it, but how do people tell us about it?
You can find us on Instagram or Facebook at the Ghost Furnace Podcast, or you can send us an email at theghostfurnacepodcast@gmail.com.